Hey there, Rappies. Rapper9198 here, and welcome to another edition of Ryan's Day Reading. And so today, I've decided I'll read chapters 9 and 10 of I'll Push You. So again, just a little recap from the previous chapter. I remember, they had the front wheel of Justin's chair came off, and they were looking everywhere to find someone to weld it. And they did end up finding one. And so far, after all the different obstacles they've encountered so far, they've made it to Pamplona, so which is, again, on the map, as you can see, this is 69 kilometers. I know it's very small, but that's what it says, though. So they're slowly but surely making it so far. All right, so we'll start here with chapter 9, which is titled Measure Twice, Cut Once. And so now we're starting again from Justin's perspective. Patrick's excursion with Pamplona's finest has cost us a fair amount of time. As a result, our departure is much later than we had hoped. We're grateful to be back on the trail, but we know we're looking at a late arrival in Uterga, tonight's destination, about 11.5 miles to the west. The sun's warmth radiates against our backs as we walk through the city of Pamplona, a surprisingly accessible metropolis of about 200,000 people. We easily navigate the many streets, sidewalks, and parks as we follow the little yellow arrows that mark the Camino path. Before long, we arrive at the trailhead on the southwest side of town, and we're glad to be back on the dirt path. But there's a bit of fear and trepidation about the new weld. It looks sturdy enough, but the real proof is in its performance, and we have a long way to go. As we work our way farther from town, the trail meanders through a series of rolling hills, but up ahead, we see a sizable climb in our immediate future. As we struggle up a section with an abundance of loose rocks underfoot, a cyclist blurs past us, shouting, "Buen camino!" This standard greeting for every pilgrim on the trail, "Good walk," creates a unique and instant bond among fellow travelers. When the Italian cyclist reaches the top of the grade, he stops, lays down his bike at the side of the trail, and jogs back down the hill to give us a hand. Stepping in as co-pilot next to Patrick in the back, he helps push while Ted pulls on the harness out front. It's a short but strenuous climb, and all 3 human engines grunt and groan as they propel me up the hill. At the top of the incline, I use my basic Italian to thank the cyclist and wish him good travels, but before he leaves us, we reach a fork in the trail, which initiates an entirely new conversation about the best way to go. After a brief discussion, punctuated by copious hand gestures, we decide to stay on the footpath rather than taking the bike route. We wave goodbye to our new friend as he heads off to the right while we proceed left. Continuing up the now gentle grade, we are soon greeted by an impressive sea of green and red, beautiful poppies covering the hillside as far as we can see. As we draw closer, we realize our path cuts directly across one of these poppy fields. Instead of a trail wide enough for my wheelchair, we face a narrow footpath running east to west. Embracing what lies before us, we forge ahead. Progress is slow, and we begin to wonder whether this is even part of the trail. The ground is incredibly uneven, and the path is littered with rocks the size of cantaloupes. My chair is 24 inches wide, and the path is maybe half that. This means that most of the time, both of the mountain bike tires are rolling against the resistance of 3-foot tall poppies. Additionally, the trail is so uneven that Patrick must constantly lift up one side of the handlebars to keep me from tipping over, while Ted pulls on my footrest and lifts the front wheel over ruts, rocks, and holes to protect our new weld. Every so often, the two switch places to give their fatigued muscles a break. We begin to wonder whether we should turn back and look for an alternate route. But we are now halfway through the field, and turning my chair around amid the thick growth of poppies will be nearly impossible. So we continue to fight our way through. Finally, we reach the other side and are back on a clearly marked trail where the familiar yellow arrows point the way towards Santiago. We've read that if we go for too long without seeing one of these arrows, we're probably lost. So we're happy to see a large stone pillar directly in front of us with a yellow arrow pointing to the left. The path is now wider, and we are excited at the prospect of reaching Alto de Perdón, a monument to all the pilgrims who have walked the Camino for over 1,000 years. In our guidebook, we've seen pictures of the oxidized metal silhouettes depicting pilgrims on foot, on horseback, and leading pack animals, arrayed in a caravan across the top of a plateau. And we're eager to see it with our own eyes. Soon, we catch a glimpse of it in the distance, and we begin the ascent. 30 feet from the top, we hit loose rock, and Patrick has to get down on all fours to gain enough leverage to pull, while Ted continues to push me toward the apex of the hill. When we reach the top, we realize the monument is even more impressive than it appears in pictures. A work of art on display in a windy open-air museum, stretching more than 100 feet across the hilltop. After the arduous climb, we're happy to find a fountain with fresh, cool drinking water. While I enjoy a few minutes of respite looking down over Pamplona in the distance, Patrick and Ted drain and refill our water bottles and the water reservoir in my backpack. The monument seems to stare back at me, and I think to myself, they need to add a silhouette of a guy in a wheelchair. My musing is interrupted by thoughts of our next challenge. A few pilgrims we've met along the way have warned us about the section of trail leading toward Uterga. The steep downhill grade and large, loose rocks create dangerous terrain for a wheelchair. Consulting the map in our guidebook for an alternate route, we see a country road leading down the hill to our right, past a ridge line studded with evenly spaced wind turbines. Taking the road all the way down all the way into town will add a fair amount of time, so we decide to go as far as the bottom of the hill and then cut across on a short trail identified on the map. Anticipating the next stretch will be rather uneventful, the film crew goes on ahead to find a place to stay the night, with Patrick now pulling back on the handlebars to slow our descent and Ted as an anchor behind him. I'm reminded of our last day training on Quail Ridge. The steep road soon has us moving at a fairly quick pace, despite Ted and Patrick's short, calculated steps. Off to our right, the massive windmills spin slowly, and the rhythmic sound of their blades slicing through the air marks the tempo for Patrick and Ted as they march down the hill. We make it to the short trail and take the cutoff, ignoring the absence of yellow arrows. "Are we sure this is right?" Ted asks. "No, but it definitely heads in the right direction," Patrick replies. "Should we stay on the road?" Not sure what to do, but wanting to avoid the extra distance the road will add to our already long day, We set a course we hope will get us back to the trail at a point below the loose rock slope. Let's see where this goes, I say to Ted and Patrick. For a good mile and an hour's worth of work, the trail is wide and the up and down of the hills is minimal. But the terrain is reminiscent of the rough trail we fought through the Pyrenees, and the tall trees on either side make it difficult to keep our bearings. Judging by the wide tire ruts all along the way, we determine early on that this must be a popular Jeep or off-road vehicle trail. The lack of yellow arrows should have concerned us, but when we started down this path, we were fairly certain it headed straight to the base of the steep downhill section we wanted to avoid. We're less certain now. The second mile on this shortcut begins to drift to the left, and with each successive hill, we're actually gaining elevation. Our conversation dies away as the prospect of a shortcut has turned into anything but. The brush and grass have gradually thickened, and I now have bunches of dried vegetation stuck in the spokes of my tires and wrapped around the axles. Patrick clenches his jaw as he mulls over the situation while pulling out the debris. Both he and Ted have been taking turns running ahead to make sure we can continue. When Ted is out ahead on one of these sorties, he yells back, "The grass and growth are getting even thicker and taller the farther I go." I don't think anyone has been through here in a long time. "Can we make it through in the chair?" Patrick yells back. "I think so. We have to be close." When Ted returns, both he and Patrick are covered in sweat. Patrick asks me if I want to turn back. "We've made it this far. Let's see where this goes," I reply. Ted jumps in behind my chair to give Patrick a break from pushing, and Patrick attempts to clear a path for my wheels by stomping down the growth that pushes back against my tires. With the higher elevation, we can now see the western horizon to our right, and we're certain we're heading in the right direction, but it's anyone's guess where we'll come out on the trail. As the trees begin to thin, we reach a wide spot connecting to the steep downhill portion of the Camino. Looking up to our left, we discover that our 2-hour shortcut has saved us only the first 30 feet of the downhill stretch we were desperately trying to avoid in the first place. Ted's shoulders sag, and Patrick hanes his head in defeat. I just lean back in my wheelchair and take a deep breath. "Well, we found the trail," Ted says as he turns to look at Patrick and me. "At least we know we're not lost," I hear from behind me. Ted begins to laugh, and it isn't long before Patrick and I join him. And now we're going back to Patrick's perspective. "I remember my grandfather as a remarkable woodworker. Like Justin with his artwork, my grandfather's patience and attention to detail have always impressed me, even as a young boy. For the most part, my exposure to his work was the finished product. A beautiful china hutch sat in our dining room, and a grandfather clock stood in our living room. Every time the clock chimed, I was reminded of the hard work that Grandpa had put in to create such a gorgeous piece of furniture. When we were old enough, my parents let each of us kids spend a week of the summer with our grandparents in nearby Meridian. A week apart from Justin meant he and I had to delay any plans for mischief, but my grandparents' country homestead, complete with a 6,000 square foot house, large red barn, and massive garden, was an acceptable trade-off. I did, however, have to work while I was there. I spent days pulling weeds in the garden, picking ripe berries, or doing whatever other chores they came up with. In addition to a good work ethic, my grandpa taught me a valuable life lesson that I would never forget, but would sometimes ignore to my own detriment. One particular summer day when I was about 9, the day's work was completed, and my grandfather asked me to accompany him down to his shop in the basement of their home. He had already taught me how to play chess, and now he wanted to teach me a thing or two about woodworking. The subterranean room he had dedicated to his craft was incredible, about 1,000 square feet filled with every tool you could imagine. Most of them looked ancient to me, but all were in perfect working order. His table saw, dating back to the 1950s, still ran like a champ. Guiding me over to a workbench, he showed me an array of boards and nails and laid out simple, clear instructions for building a bird feeder, which was the task at hand. No matter what, measure twice and cut once, he said. This applies to woodworking and people, he added with a smile. With the admonition firmly in mind, we began our collective work. I measured and cut while my grandfather made sure I didn't remove any fingers during the process. Details have never been my strong point, especially as a child. Working hard while overlooking the details has often led me down the wrong path. As I cut a piece of wood for the base of my bird feeder, my grandpa watched with little expression on his face. With all the pieces cut, I began to assemble my woodworking masterpiece, only to discover the base was about 1 inch too narrow. You measured once, Grandpa said with a hint of a smile, and now you have to cut twice. I measured twice, I argued. No, you didn't. I watched you. He knew I had made the mistake, but he let me continue down the path until I discovered it on my own. He could have intervened, but chose not to. Rather than simply cutting a new piece, my grandpa made me start over from the beginning, measuring and cutting each piece again. This was one of the few times I was ever angry with him. He let me fail and then almost laughed about it, but now as an adult, I know he wasn't laughing. He was silently celebrating how this lesson would one day serve me well. I wish I had heeded his advice on the Camino. All right, back to the present. Okay, as we begin our descent, we're all three saying things like, shortcuts never pay off, and measure twice, cut once. It turns out we misread the map and took the wrong road. On top of that, we ignored the clear warning the absence of yellow arrows should have sorry, what am I doing? On top of that, we ignored the clear warning the absence of yellow arrows should have provided. Geez, that was a little bit of a tongue twister right there for some reason for me. I don't know why. Sorry about that. The sun is just beginning to touch the horizon, and we still have a long way to go. Ted is now at the helm behind Justin, pulling against the gravity of the chair, while I'm strapped in behind Ted, leaning back into the nylon harness that runs across my back and is attached to the back of the chair with 2 carabiners. Painstakingly, we work our way down the hill, zigzagging from left to right and back again to avoid the large rocks and to keep too much momentum from building. When we finally reach the bottom, Ted takes a break and I push Justin down the flat. Wide trail toward Uterga. No more shortcuts, Justin shouts into the gathering twilight. Ted and I just laugh. At dusk, we reach our destination, only to find all the inns are full. Terry was able to secure lodging for himself, but albergues don't hold beds for pilgrims. It's a first come, first served business model, and we are dead last. Frustrated, but resigned to the necessity of moving on, we retrieve our headlamps from our backpacks and begin the 3-mile trek to the town where Mike, Jasper, and Robin are spending the night. With the wind picking up, the temperature begins to drop. So we stop briefly to bundle Justin against the cold. Heading straight into the wind, I suddenly realized how incredibly tired I am. Surrendering the handlebars to Ted to push Justin onward to the town of Obanos. O-B-A-N-O-S. I drop back and moderate my pace, grateful to be able to just walk for a while. In the darkening countryside, I'm thinking of my grandpa and the bird feeder. As a smile crosses my face, lightning illuminates the sky to our left, marking the approach of another storm. My thoughts scatter with a renewed sense of urgency, and we push on. By the time we reach Obanos, the darkness of the night makes the town roads difficult to navigate, even though Terry called ahead to let the other guys know we're coming. We have no idea where to find them. Around 10:30, with our lamps on high beam and a stroke of luck, we stumble across our film crew in the heart of town. Tired, grumpy, and hungry, we find some food. After the usual routine of getting Justin into our room, we settle in for the rest and recuperation we so desperately need. As I drift off to sleep, my mind wanders through the events of the day, the challenges, the shortcut, back to thoughts of my grandfather, and finally rests on God. Many people grab on to a concept of God as judgmental and angry, as someone who causes strife simply to teach us lessons or toy with us. I don't profess to understand the creator of the universe, but I have no time for a divine puppeteer who throws obstacles in our way for his own amusement. The God I believe in is a God of love and compassion, much like a loving parent or my wise grandfather. My grandpa didn't set me up for failure, but he didn't intervene to keep me from making a mistake. He simply used my bird feeder mishap to teach me an incredibly valuable lesson. Take time, evaluate, and learn from my mistakes. Today was a frustrating day, and the challenges could easily have been avoided. But even though I ignored the lesson I had learned from my grandfather, being reminded of the wisdom that can dwell in simple tasks affirms so much of what we've done. I don't know exactly what my grandpa meant when he said, "No matter what, measure twice and cut once." This applies to woodworking and people, but I'm pretty sure today qualifies. We didn't measure twice by double checking the map, and we ignored the absence of yellow arrows. As a result, our shortcut was anything but short. Yet so often in life, it's easy to take the path of least resistance in hopes of something easier around the next bend. I don't believe that God litters our lives with obstacles, but he certainly doesn't just take them away or prevent us from making wrong decisions. He lets us walk the path we choose, and he lets us encounter the struggles of life, hoping we will learn and grow from each experience. Today, I'm grateful for this. No more shortcuts. All right, that's it for chapter 9. And yeah, I think that's a really good lesson too. And I truly believe that as well. I know God is he's definitely a God of love and compassion. And that he, I've I've definitely had many, I've had experiences of that too. It's hard to recall anything specific, but I know that I know he's watching, I know he's looking out for all of us and wants us to learn from mistakes. Like, I know I've had many different things happen at work, and I know that he wants me to grow. I know that God wants me to grow and develop more confidence, because with my autism, I know I'm still not completely better at it. There's a lot of times where I'm a bit reclusive, but it's a natural response. But I'm trying to work to speak up about things more, and I know he's wanting to provide me opportunities to try and do that, really help me prove myself better. And I know that's God at work there, and that's the way I think of it, and it actually does help me feel better about it, because working with people with disabilities, and some of that includes, some have some behaviors. I do get scared. It does sometimes scare me, I have to admit, but I think also it's part of confidence building for me. That's the way I have to think about it. And with each day, you learn something new every day. And I am slowly but surely learning more about it and kind of figuring out what to do, knowing people better and knowing more kind of about their backgrounds and kind of where they came from, because sometimes they don't have the best upbringings, it's stuff like that can really strike a chord with you, and really, because their behaviors can probably have a much deeper meaning, because it might be scary on the surface, but you never know. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So I think that's a good message right there in that chapter, is to really learn from your mistakes and be able to grow and evolve and be even better. So yeah, I like that message, and that's another nice positive message I'd like to put out in this video. So, all right, so now we go into chapter 10. This one is called Paddy-Wagon and Skeez. All right, so now we're still in Patrick's perspective right now. So now they've made it to Obanos, I believe. I'm so sorry. Again, I'm a terrible pronouncer. Obanos or Obanos. 94 kilometers, as it says on the map here. So, still making it their way. They're still making their way, slowly but surely. All right. So Patrick's perspective here. Justin and I have been together 24 hours a day for the past 10 days, and we've also had Ted and the film crew by our sides. Despite the challenges of the Pyrenees, the broken wheel, getting lost, and our constant and intense proximity, our spirits are high. Since our run-in with the Spanish police, we have taken to calling Robin the Fixer. He solves problems, gets us out of tight situations, and makes sure the cameras and equipment are running smoothly. We didn't come up with that nickname on a whim. He earned it. And it's a name he clearly enjoys. Robin isn't the only one with a nickname on the Camino. Ted is a beast, not because of his size, but because of his fierce determination, strength, and willpower. And we've all begun referring to him as Team Ted. He may only be one individual, but he gets as much done as a team of people. Team Ted recently began calling me Paddy after hearing it from Justin over the past week. And Justin has been Skeez for as long as I can remember. Paddy and Skeez, there's something powerful in nicknames that become terms of endearment. there's a history behind any nickname that sticks for as long as ours have, and we're reminded of their origin every time we hear them. All right, and now we go back to Justin. My father, Jim, is the original Skeez, dating back to his college days. But Patrick felt it worked for me as well while we were growing up, and the name stuck. It wasn't long before all our friends knew me as Skeez. Patrick, on the other hand, had no familial history. No familial history of nicknames. So I worked with what I had, and thus began a litany of iterations of Patrick's name. Some lasted only a moment, others a few weeks or months. I believe the order went something like this. Patricia? Nope, apparently that falls into the realm of insult. Patty Melt? Nope. Patio Furniture? Nope. Patty McGroin? A tip of the cap to Patrick's Irish ancestry, but nope. Patty McCrotch? Nope, for all the same reasons. Spatty? This worked for a while, but just didn't seem to fit the way I wanted it to. Paddy-Wagon? We found a winner. I don't know why it stuck, but it did. And I started calling him Paddy-Wagon everywhere we went. Patrick didn't seem to mind, but the name never really got old. Paddy-Wagon and Skeez. That's how we were known for years. But just because something works doesn't mean there isn't a better option out there somewhere. I don't recall exactly when it happened, but it was sometime during our middle school years. One of us had just returned from a summer family vacation, so we had been apart longer than our usual 24-hour limit. If I remember correctly, Patrick had just arrived in my driveway on his bicycle, and I was pretty excited to see him. I don't know what came over me, but I squinted my eyes and tilted my head back while out of my mouth erupted a loud, high-pitched and prolonged "Patty!" As Patrick walked toward me, his head dropped slightly forward and began to turn from side to side. I could see the rise and fall of his shoulders as he laughed. There it was, the pitch-perfect name that had eluded me for so long. I had been so close and had finally found the name that would stick forever. Out here on the Camino, he hears Patty more often than Patrick, and he wouldn't have it any other way. The past few days have been especially rough on my backside, lower back, and neck. In an effort to give my body and wheelchair a break from the rugged trail, we decide to travel along a paved road that parallels the path of the Camino. Shortly after leaving Obanos, we work our way from the trail onto pavement. As soon as we get out on the road, a cyclist speeds past us, shouting, "Buen Camino!" But he's moving much faster than any other cyclist we met. Within seconds, 4 more cyclists power past us, and it doesn't take long to realize we're in the middle of a bike race and clearly not competing. Over the next few minutes, 60 or more cyclists rushed past us in their pursuit of those up ahead. And for the next 2 hours, as the sun beats down on our backs and radiates off the pavement, the same stream of cyclists keeps passing by. Apparently, they're riding some kind of loop. Each time they pass, the cheers and shouts of "Buen Camino" get louder and grow in number. The joy in their voices distracts us from the heat and our sore feet. A scattering of their fans along the roadside also cheer us on. And now we're laughing at the situation because we've tried multiple times to find a way back to the Camino path to no avail. Instead, we continue to press forward in the middle of the race, straying to the left side of the road while cyclists whiz by on our right. As Ted and Patrick begin powering my chair up a lawn hill, we see 2 tables with sunshades at the top. After a slow and steady climb, we approach the summit and can see that one of the tables is covered in bananas, cut in half, and the other is stocked with shiny packets of energy gel reflecting in the sun. Several volunteers stand at the ready, passing out bananas for cramps and gel packs for energy to the fatigued cyclists. As we begin to crest the hill, the volunteers cheer and clap for us while filling our pockets with banana halves and packets of the not-so-tasty energy gel. Ted and Patrick are repeatedly smacked on the back and shoulders by strangers who are smiling and shouting out words of encouragement in Spanish. Many of these same people hug me in my chair and give me looks of admiration. We are laughing at how crazy this day is, and we're overjoyed by the reception we receive from these complete strangers. Now on a flat stretch of road, we finally leave the bike race behind, making our way back onto a smooth section of the Camino Trail and continue our day's journey to Estella. When we arrive in town, we find lodging and get cleaned up before dinner. Ted and Patrick have angry feet from the hard pavement, so they exchange their sweaty shoes for the flip-flops they have stuffed in their backpacks. Estella is a beautiful town, and the central plaza buzzes with the happy sounds of local denizens who are out for dinner and drinks after a long day's work. As we sit at an outdoor table enjoying a cold beer, other pilgrims filter into town, and a couple of Germans we met briefly on the trail from Pamplona join us at our table. Ziggy and Dietmar, both in their 60s, are brothers walking a section of the Camino. Dietmar is taking his brother on the pilgrimage for his birthday. Their trek is ending soon, and this is one of the last times we'll see them. We welcome the opportunity to enjoy dinner with these new friends before they return home. As we eat, we recount for them the details of our inadvertent entry in the bike race, and we all have a good laugh at our incredible circumstances. All right, and now we're going back to Patrick again. With the sun hanging low in the sky and shadows beginning to swallow up the town square, I excuse myself to take a bathroom break. When I return, everyone at the table is deeply engrossed in animated conversation. Justin looks up, and as we make eye contact, he smiles and shouts out, "Paddy!" in that unique high-pitched way of his, like 2 half notes on the upper register of the piano, descending from D sharp to C sharp. I can't help but tilt my head down, shake it from side to side, and laugh. Justin laughs with me, and the joy on his face is infectious. By the time I reach the table, he is leaning forward in his chair and laughing so hard that his eyes have smiles all their own. Paddy and Skeez may just be silly names from our childhood, but every time Justin calls me Paddy, I am taken back to riding bikes across town, snowball mishaps, shared groundings for shared mischief, and any of a number of moments we have crafted together. Right now, though, I'm taken back just a few hours to finding ourselves in the middle of a bike race on the Camino de Santiago. Who we are has grown by one more memory. We have grown by one more story, one more shared experience, one more adventure. All right, and that's it for chapter 10. And oh my gosh, I just love how I like how these encounters they're having. I like how they're how they're, especially with the bike race, everybody is so supportive. Like a group of people who don't know them are supporting them and like, giving them good luck, and and now they were having dinner with people that they met earlier on in the journey, and it's like I feel like all that is like God at work there. Like it's like all of it is meant to happen. So it's, again, I just love so many positive messages in this book, and I just like what you can get out, like what messages can come out of a book like this. And so yeah, but that's it for chapter 10, and that'll conclude this Ryan's Day reading. Stay tuned next time as we go into chapter 11, Taking the Bull by the Horns. All right, so thank you again, Rappies. Hope you guys are really enjoying this as I am. Love you all to death. God bless, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye.